In the world of 1980s sports cars, certain names always seem to dominate the conversation. The Nissan Z, the Mazda RX-7, the Toyota Supra. These cars have become legends in their own right, often taking center stage when talking about Japanese performance icons. But there's one car that's often overlooked, a hidden gem that deserves just as much recognition, the Mitsubishi Starion. Now, if you're hearing about the Starion for the first time, don't worry, you're not alone. This turbocharged rear-wheel drive coupe was a technological marvel of its era, yet for some reason, it missed its shot at the spotlight. So let's dust off the history books and dive into the story of the Starion, a car that quietly left a mark on both the road and the racetrack. Where it all began. The Starion story begins in 1982. Mitsubishi Motors launched this sleek machine as their flagship sports car, a bold entry designed to take on the best from Japan and beyond. Even its name has an interesting backstory. Mitsubishi claims Starion is a combination of star, symbolizing excellence, and Arion, a mythical horse from Greek legend. But there's another theory, one that's a bit more humorous. Some say the name was actually a mispronunciation of the word stallion by Japanese engineers. True or not, the idea of a turbocharged stallion galloping onto the global automotive stage seems oddly fitting. What made it special? At its core, the Starion was a Grand Tourer, or GT car, which meant it was designed for long, high-speed journeys in comfort while still delivering performance. It sported a front-engine, rear-wheel drive layout, a classic configuration for any respectable sports car. But what really set the Starion apart from the competition was its forward-thinking use of turbocharging and electronic fuel injection. In the early 80s, these technologies were far from mainstream, especially in Japanese performance cars. This made the Starion a pioneer of sorts, a glimpse into the future of sports car engineering. And let's not forget the design. Oh, the design. The looks from narrow to wide body. The Starion entered the scene with that quintessential 80s wedge shape, sleek, aerodynamic, and undeniably cool. Early models were known as narrow body, but as the years went on, Mitsubishi gave the Starion a makeover. In 1986, they introduced the wide-body version, and it was a game-changer. The wide-body Starion wasn't just about looks, although it certainly turned heads. Those flared fenders made room for wider wheels and tires, which significantly improved the car's handling and road grip. Suddenly, the Starion looked less like a quiet contender and more like an aggressive, road-hugging machine. It was now a sports car you'd think twice about underestimating. Under the hood, turbocharged power. Of course, no sports car story is complete without talking about what's under the hood. Depending on the market, Mitsubishi offered two main engine options for the Starion. In Japan and most other countries, you'd find a 2.0-liter turbocharged inline-4 engine known as the Sirius G63B. It packed plenty of punch with power ranging from 145 to 197 horsepower, depending on the year and trim. American buyers, however, got something a bit bigger, a 2.6-liter turbocharged inline-4 engine called the Astron G54B. It didn't rev as high as the smaller Japanese engine, but its larger displacement delivered impressive torque, making it perfect for American driving styles. But here's where it gets interesting. One of the coolest versions of the Starion came out of the Japanese market. Between 1984 and 1987, Mitsubishi introduced the GSR-V, a model equipped with the unique DASH engine. This 2.0-liter engine featured an extra third intake valve that kicked in at higher RPMs, boosting airflow and performance. The result? A top-end punch that let the engine scream all the way to 7,000 RPM. Not bad for the mid-80s. The Chrysler Connection. Here's a little twist to the story. In North America, the Starion didn't just wear a Mitsubishi badge. Thanks to Mitsubishi's partnership with Chrysler, the car was also rebadged and sold as the Conquest under various Chrysler brands. You could buy it as a Dodge Conquest, a Plymouth Conquest, or even a Chrysler Conquest, depending on the year. While the badges changed, the car underneath stayed largely the same. This rebadging strategy helped Mitsubishi gain a foothold in the American market, where buyers were more familiar with Chrysler than with a relatively unknown Japanese automaker. Inside the Starion, ahead of its time. The Starion's cabin was all about the driver. It featured a 2+2 seating layout, which meant you could technically fit 2 people in the back, though it was probably best left for kids or extra cargo. The front seats, however, were something special. They were highly adjustable, with features like lumbar support and variable angle side bolsters. This might not sound groundbreaking today, but in the early 80s, this was high-tech comfort. Later models even included small luxuries like power windows that would stay operational for 30 seconds after the engine was turned off. It's the kind of thoughtful detail that made the Starion feel like a step above the competition. Handling and technology now, the Starion wasn't just about straight-line speed, it was built to handle too. The car featured McPherson struts up front and independent rear suspension, giving it a balanced and responsive ride. Throw in sway bars at both ends, a limited slip differential, and optional rear anti-lock brakes, and you had a sports car that was both fast and surprisingly refined. For the 80s, this was cutting-edge stuff. And if you were lucky enough to get a later model with the Sports Handling Package, SHP, you got even more goodies: adjustable front and rear struts and wider wheels for improved handling. The Starion wasn't just about bragging rights. It delivered where it counted. Dominating motorsports. If you still need convincing that the Starion was something special, let's talk about its time on the track. In circuit racing, the Starion made its mark in Group A and Group N categories. It was particularly successful in endurance racing, where it proved to be a reliable and competitive machine. In the United States, Team Mitsubishi dominated the grueling longest day of Nelson Ledge's 24-hour race, winning 4 years in a row from 1984 to 1987. One of the most legendary moments came in 1985, when a Team Starion suffered a rollover crash during the race. In true underdog fashion, the crew patched up the car with, you're not going to believe this, chicken wire as a makeshift windshield. And guess what? They still won the race. Over in rallying, Mitsubishi developed an all-wheel drive Starion prototype for the infamous Group B rally series. Sadly, Group B was banned before the car could compete officially, but the technology developed for this project would later influence Mitsubishi's rally legend. The Lancer evolution, the Mitsubishi Starion, the underdog of the 1980s sports car scene. When we talk about 1980s Japanese sports cars, names like the Nissan Z, Mazda RX-7, and Toyota Supra dominate the conversation. But there's one car that deserves more credit: the Mitsubishi Starion. This turbocharged rear-wheel drive coupe was a technological marvel, yet it missed out on the spotlight. Introduced in 1982 as Mitsubishi's flagship sports car, the Starion was designed to compete with the best. Its name supposedly combines star and Arion, a mythical Greek horse, though some believe it's a humorous mispronunciation of stallion. Either way, this stallion galloped onto the automotive stage with serious credentials. Turbo power and innovation. The Starion was one of the first Japanese performance cars to embrace both turbocharging and electronic fuel injection, technologies that were groundbreaking at the time. It featured a front-engine, rear-wheel drive layout, giving it that classic sports car feel. Under the hood, there were 2 main engines, a 2.0-liter 4-cylinder in Japan and a 2.6-liter turbocharged engine for American buyers. Power ranged from 145 to 197 horsepower, depending on the model and year. In 1986, Mitsubishi introduced the wide-body variant, which gave the Starion an aggressive stance. It wasn't just for looks. Wider tires improved grip, handling, and overall performance. Ahead of its time. What made the Starion special was its cutting-edge features. It came with a limited slip differential, independent rear suspension, and even rear anti-lock brakes, rare for the 1980s. Later models offered adjustable suspension and a cockpit focused on driver comfort, complete with lumbar support and advanced side bolsters. Motorsport glory. The Starion wasn't just a looker, it dominated on the track and rally stage. In the US, Team Mitsubishi won the grueling Nelson Ledge's 24-hour race 4 years straight, 1984 to 1987. even finishing one race with a chicken wire windshield after a crash. Globally, it claimed podiums in Japan's Touring Car Championship, victories in Australia's Super Series, and wins across Europe, including the UK and Netherlands. Mitsubishi's AWD Group B Rally prototype never got its shot due to the category's ban, but the technology later inspired the legendary Lancer Evolution. The end of an era. By 1989, the Starion's production came to an end as Mitsubishi shifted focus to newer models like the GTO, 3000 GT, and Eclipse. However, the Starion left a lasting legacy. Its turbocharging and AWD developments directly influenced Mitsubishi's future rally cars, setting the stage for the Evo's dominance in the 1990s. Final thoughts. The Mitsubishi Starion may not have the fame of its 1980s rivals, but that's what makes it special. It's the underdog, a car that quietly pushed boundaries and paved the way for future legends. So next time someone mentions the Nissan Z, RX-7, or Supra, don't forget the Starion. This turbocharged stallion deserves its place among the greats. For those who own one, it's more than just a car. It's a piece of history and proof of Mitsubishi's bold innovation.